For the last few weeks, the rumor mill has been set ablaze by rumors that George Lucas could return to Star Wars. Let's discuss some of that here today.
Renegade Online.
All right, this is a good topic. I have taken my time on this one. This is actually going to be a bit of a follow-up video to one that I released, one of my first videos on YouTube, and I'll post a link to it here today. It's called Star Wars: A New Timeline. I did this one, I think, in early February of this year, about 4 months ago. So, we've had some new rumors, and I encourage everybody to please watch this video all the way through to the end. There's a lot of information here I kind of want to go over, and I want to get your thoughts on it, of course. Please like, subscribe, share. Also, make sure you leave a comment below. I want to know what you guys think about all of this, the rumors, and what I have to say today. Let's have a conversation, folks. So, let's start looking at this. We have to go back almost 10 years ago, just before the deal was finalized. Bob Iger and George Lucas were getting ready to announce to the world that Lucasfilm in its entirety, including all of the Lucasfilm properties, ILM, things like that, Lucasfilm games would all be sold to Disney in a $4.05 billion cash and stock transaction, with Disney buying it from George. One of the provisions in that contract, there were quite a few, but one of the provisions in there lends some credence to some of the things being discussed today, and also a few other things. One of the issues that came forward from that deal was, of course, the treatments or the outlines that Lucas had composed for Disney, or at least for Lucasfilm, which Disney bought, for a sequel trilogy, something to follow episodes 4, 5, and 6 that Lucas did back in the late 70s through the early 80s. And in this, there has been some more recent discussion on this. You can find this information coming from the Star Wars Archives, which is an amazing collection of works, behind the scenes, history of Star Wars, conversations with George Lucas. And this information on this outline, this Lucas version of the sequel trilogies, comes from there, that involved Princess Leia kind of taking the mantle as reviving the Republic, which makes perfect sense. Luke Skywalker would have been off trying to open his Jedi Academy, and the big bad of the series would have been Darth Maul, which we all remember him from the prequels in the first episode, The Phantom Menace. So let's talk about that story for a minute so we can kind of set all this up and then maybe come to a conclusion about whether or not George Lucas would ever come back into the fray and do anything with Star Wars, and if he did, what would it look like? So as we remember, Darth Maul and Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn got into it in The Phantom Menace, and it ended in a climactic scene with the amazing score from John Williams' Duel of the Fates, which coincidentally enough, or really not coincidentally enough, was the working title of actually Episode 9 that Colin Trevorrow was originally slated to write and direct. Of course, we all know what happened with that. And again, that's more information discussed in this previous video I did 4 months ago, so make sure you check that out. But needless to say, Obi-Wan looked on as Darth Maul killed Qui-Gon Jinn. It was a seminal moment for Obi-Wan's character and his character development. Obi-Wan then went into battle one-on-one with Darth Maul and presumably finished him off. Now, this is where Lucas's treatment for the sequels, or his sequels, would have picked up. That Maul would have still been alive. Many years later, we're talking now 20-some-odd years, 25 years later, between, maybe 30 or 40 years later, more like 30 or 40 years later, and that final confrontation with Maul would have taken place. Of course, there's a few problems with this. If anybody out there watching this is a fan of the Clone Wars series, and especially Star Wars Rebels, you know that this cannot possibly happen anymore. The whole issue about Maul's mechanical legs after he was cut in half by Obi-Wan at the end of Phantom Menace and thrown into the pit, well, Maul already came back. Maul was a major component of Star Wars: The Clone Wars. And all the way up until May 18th of 2017, where Maul finally met his end. And I think that's an important episode as well, because on May 18th, 2017, the season 3 episode, I think it was episode 20, if I'm not mistaken, Twin Sons of Star Wars Rebels, back in 2017 released, and Maul chased Obi-Wan to a planet with twin suns where Obi-Wan was watching over a very young Luke Skywalker. From what we know, this took place somewhere about 10 years after Revenge of the Sith, which coincidentally enough puts us exactly in the time space that the Obi-Wan series is set to take place. So, that being said, I am hoping for, and I am expecting, I'll be very disappointed if I don't get it, a live-action redux of that scene, of that episode, Twin Sons. Well, now, what happens in Twin Sons? Well, up to that point, Darth Maul has already gotten his mechanical legs for the same reason. Basically, the Darth Maul character and his appearance and the reason he's still alive, instead of it being used in a sequel trilogy, because I think at that point, Lucas, it was obvious to him that Disney was not going to use his sequel trilogy treatment. In fact, Bob Iger, then CEO and chairman of Disney, when he wrote his book that was recently published in the last couple of years, he said specifically in there, he made mention that Lucas was, in fact, upset or disappointed, I don't remember the exact language that was used, that his treatments were not being used. So it stands to reason that, yes, that was taken and that was used as the basis for the rest of Clone Wars and then Maul's eventual demise in Rebels, because obviously George still wanted to use Maul as a big bad, but the sequel trilogy wasn't going to happen that way. So Dave Filoni, Lucas's protege, took that story and then implanted it into canon in a different part of the timeline in Star Wars Rebels. So in that episode, Obi-Wan and Darth Maul fight each other for the final time. And in that fight, Maul loses and he is killed once and for all. Obi-Wan holds him in his arms. Maul dies looking up at him. He discusses, the potential of Luke Skywalker, because at this point in the story, Maul is very angry at the Emperor for abandoning him. Maul was running the criminal underground, just as Lucas's original treatment suggested, and Maul's hatred for the Emperor was more than his hatred for anything else. He wanted revenge. Well, that wasn't going to happen. Obi-Wan finished him off. So I'm hoping beyond hope that we actually see this, where Ray Park comes back. Because, by the way, Ray Park came back in that episode. He put on the CGI monitoring suit and did his thing on a green screen, and that's how Maul was actually animated in Clone Wars Season 7 just last year when they brought him back for that. And, of course, Clone Wars takes place before Rebels, so that's why Maul was still alive for that. So, in any case, all of that was done before, so we can't use that again. So that is why it feels like at this point, when we're looking at The Mandalorian, we're looking at Ahsoka as she came in and very clearly said, "Where is Grand Admiral Thrawn?" We know the Timothy Zahn trilogy, the Thrawn character, and the character that was used so heavily in Rebels, that character is coming back, is going to be the big bad, and that makes the most sense. I'm fine. I'm happy. I'm ecstatic about that. Cannot wait to see it. So that kind of gets everybody up to speed who hasn't watched Clone Wars and Rebels. Now, here's what's important, is when we look at this from, a 30,000-foot view, would Lucas come back? Well, we need to discuss a few things about that, okay? The first and foremost of which is George's contract with Disney. When he sold it in 2012, part of that contract that was clearly publicly reported in a number of different publications was that George Lucas was going to remain contractually as a creative consultant to Lucasfilm, particularly for Star Wars. And there was mention that he would be a creative consultant for the first 3 movies that Disney did. Now, that's not definitive. He may stay on longer, but we don't know exactly what the contract says. It could be for a limited time. It could be open-ended. I would suspect if I'm Bob Iger and I'm stroking a $4.05 billion check to buy something that is largely based around a good faith element, meaning Lucas still being able to be attached to it because that name is what drives Star Wars, I would make sure in that contract I would have Lucas on the hook for as long as he's around. And I don't think George particularly minds this. Remember, Star Wars is his child. It's not just a movie to him. This is his baby, and he cares about it a great deal. In fact, he cared about it so much that when Disney did make the phone calls for him to come in and help them with the sequel trilogies, particularly that last movie. You remember that one, The Rise of Palpatine? Yeah, well, it was rumored that George Lucas was heavily involved trying to right the ship, trying to make the series come to at least some sort of Star Wars-y conclusion. Well, again, a lot of those details I go through in that previous video, and once again, I'll leave a link. I encourage everybody, please go watch it. It is packed full of great information. But yes, it stands to reason. And I said, when the rumors came out and people were doubtful that there was a Lucas cut or that Lucas was involved or these scenes existed, I said, why would you doubt it? It's in his contract. When he got that check, he has to be there. If Bob Iger or somebody else picks up the phone and says, hey, George, we need you to come in and do something for us and help us out, give us some advice on this, he has to show up. He is contractually obligated to do it. So, of course, it makes perfect sense. And we've all seen the photos from behind the scenes of The Mandalorian with Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, and Lucas sitting there together, chumming it up. They're all good buddies. Yes, Lucas is still hanging around Lucasfilm Studios, I promise you. Now, as we look at this going forward, okay, will Lucas come back in and actually be involved in new Star Wars projects? Again, the contract says if he gets the phone call, he has to be there. He has to be on as a creative consultant. That was part of the deal he made. So, yeah, I think he will. Now, here's the issue. When we say George Lucas is going to come back and do Star Wars, there is a wide gamut of thoughts that go off from that, is there not? It could be anything from he walks in and shakes the cast's hand during a photo shoot, all the way up to he writes and directs and completely produces everything going forward with Star Wars. Now, where do you fall on that gamut? Let me know in the comments below. Me personally, we try to look at everything from a business perspective and kind of a very pragmatic perspective. Do I personally believe that George Lucas is going to be coming in, writing and directing new Star Wars movies? No, absolutely not. George Lucas is a big picture guy. He's never really liked doing the directing himself. He likes to see everything from a 30,000-foot view. He is the best executive, creative / actual producer out there. Some people can't translate into both things. Some people can't do either. Kathy Kennedy. So he is one of those guys that is a great creative mind, and he's a great producer. I can totally see that happening. And for Disney, and this is why I think they would absolutely do it, is because Disney at this point, in order to make Star Wars financially successful, because it really has not met anywhere near the goals that Disney had set out for it up to this point, with rare exception, but particularly the movies, having George Lucas's name attached officially to a Star Wars property as an executive producer and being able to advertise that this is a George Lucas production of Star Wars is worth probably an extra $500 million per film to Disney at this point, to have that name on there. They might be great, they might be terrible, but having that name on there means something financially. There is that intangible value of goodwill with his name being directly attached to Star Wars, as opposed to what we got in the sequel trilogies, where he was just, creatively inspired or story inspired by, is all effectively you got, because we know Lucas had nothing to do with what actually made it onto the screen for those sequels. So that being said, let's kind of get down to brass tacks on this. Yes, I think George Lucas will be back. Yes, I think in some capacity. No, I don't think it's going to be in the capacity that some people are imagining it to be. But he is going to be, I believe, much more heavily involved in Star Wars going forward if he gets that phone call, again, because that's what the contract says. And I think at this point, again, at the end of the day, and I've been saying this for months, Disney's in business to make money. That's it. They're investors. The ones who actually control Disney, the people like Vanguard, like BlackRock, like State Street, American Funds, Invesco, all of these big mutual fund companies, these big financial institutions, that control a huge portion of Disney's voting stock are the ones that want to see Disney profitable. It doesn't matter at the end of the day what Chapek says or what Iger says or what the board even says, because the investors, the publicly held stock, the voting stock, is what makes the decisions who gets on the board and therefore who gets into the CEO chair, so on and so forth. So if they think they can make money with new Star Wars property, by God, they're going to do it. And of course, we've already had news about this, that new Star Wars properties will be coming forward. So in any case, that kind of gives the 30,000-foot view, as I said, where I'm at as far as George Lucas returning. So when you hear these rumors, again, as they said, and a lot of it comes from Doomcock, which is a great guy. I love Doomcock to death. But he tells you straight up, look, I'm an entertainer. I'm here to have fun. These are rumors. Take them with a grain of salt. This is all the same thing. But do those rumors, do the reports that he gets have merit or not? I think they do have merit. Again, it's all about the perspective in which you put them in. And if you're imagining it to be way more than it is, that's okay, but that's on you. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think we're going to see Lucas writing and directing anything, but I think he will be back because, look, this is his legacy. Like I said, this is his baby. This is his child. He wants to see this be successful. I think he wants to go to his grave knowing that his story with Star Wars, the right story with Star Wars, was told and completed. And I think that's very important to him. And I think he feels like he has the right people in the right place with Favreau and Filoni that can help him carry that through to the end. It's going to take a few years. But again, and this is the big part, it's not going to happen as long as Kathleen Kennedy is still there. And if you've listened to my channel long enough, since I've been on, I started about February 1st. I've been on a little over 4 months. I have been consistent that Kathy Kennedy will not be there after October. It's going to be a quiet exit. It's not going to be a big bombshell on the news. It's going to be, we wish you well. We hope you have the best retirement. She'll get a Lifetime Achievement Award at the Academy Awards next year or the following year. Just watch. They're going to sing her praises and then write her a big fat retirement check, put her under a lifetime non-disclosure agreement, and that will be that, because they don't want her writing, some kind of tell-all book where she complains about, how she was treated poorly and the reason why she wasn't successful at Lucasfilm was because of, straight white men or something like that. Right now, Kathy obviously is involved in Indiana Jones 5. No idea how that's going to turn out. Really, really don't. And as I've said before on this channel and on other live streams I've been on, I have said that Indiana Jones 5 is part of Kathy Kennedy's buyout ticket. She really wanted that. Disney is able to use that as a carrot to dangle in front of her. Listen, Kathy, we're going to come to an amicable agreement for your departure. Everybody's going to be friends. We're all going to act sweet about it. We're not going to talk trash. We're going to make sure that you look like the best person on earth when you leave and how much we love you and blah, blah, blah. And if you stay quiet and you don't cause a fuss that you're leaving, you'll get executive producer credits on Indiana Jones 5. How much creative input at this point Kathy's going to have in the movie in the post-production, because obviously if she leaves at the end of October, there's still going to be a lot of post-production work on Indy going on. I think as long as she gets her executive producer credits on Indy 5, she's going to be perfectly happy. I think that's what we're going to see. So, in any case, we'll talk about Indy 5 in another bit. I haven't had much... I haven't had much interest in discussing that for obvious reasons. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I wish you all a good weekend. Well, to put it this way, it's Saturday morning right now as I'm recording this. I may not release this video until Monday. Weekends don't tend to be really great for videos like this on YouTube, so I may hold back. But anyway, have a great day. Good to see you. And we'll see you next time. Until then, take care.